Welcome to Shop Talk Live, episode number 369. Today, I am joined by Fine Woodworking's Bridgid Gruber, also known as Dinkle's Woodshop, and the one and only Bill Pavlak, the head cabinet maker at the Hay Shop in Colonial Williamsburg. This is a man who operates hand tools as much as I operate a computer. That's why we have a new e-learning course with him that is basically, if you took Mike Pekovich's Foundations of Woodworking, which is all about joinery and joints and how to assemble them, and said, how are we going to do this if we're a hand tool only woodworker? That's what we did with Bill Pavlak. Bill covers all of the joints multiple ways with simple tools you probably have, with complicated tools you probably want and drool over but can't afford. Bill covers the whole gambit. So dovetails, mortise and tenon joints, grooves, dados, tapered sliding dovetails, the whole thing. Bill goes wild with this class. So if you're interested in that, head on over to finewoodworking.com/elearning and check out the course, and we'll see you there. All right. Me, Dinkle, Bill. Boom.
Bill, we hung out for what, 3-4 days?
Yeah.
Maybe like 6 weeks ago or so?
Something like that. Uh-huh.
And we recorded a course for Fine Woodworking, an e-learning course that is basically, here is all of the joints, and here's how a dude like Bill Pavlak would cut them, right?
Right, yeah.
It was a little bit grueling on you, though, because like that's, well, okay, question.
Uh-huh.
I know if I am left to my own devices for 3 days to woodwork, my body is not used to being in the shop woodworking straight for 3 days. Bridgid, I'm sure you're similar.
Same. Yeah. Yep.
Like if you go to a class, it's tiring. Right?
Yeah, for sure. I got soft hands.
Bill, like this is what you do though. Like you don't feel it, do you?
Well, I mean, a little bit, but I'm so used to, I mean, the weird thing is being on camera where you're the only person and the center of attention nonstop for 3 days. That's a lot, you know. But it's a different kind of tiring because there's as much talking as there is working. So you're on the whole time. And I think that was kind of tiring, you know, but in terms of like body aches and all that, it wasn't as big of a thing.
Do you find, so first off, there's a position at Colonial Williamsburg right now, isn't there?
Yes. Yeah. We're looking for a new apprentice. Yeah.
So do you find when a new apprentice starts, after like a few days, they're like, whoa, I didn't see this coming?
Yeah. I mean, they probably don't say that out loud until a few years later. But yes, I mean, I went through that. We all do. And we, you know, you warn people when you interview them that, look, we're cabinet makers and we're only using hand tools, but we're also talking half of our day or a good portion of the day, and we're constantly being watched. And that is a challenging thing. It's to learn or to practice doing stuff when other people are watching you. And most people can't see everything you're doing in the detail that you think they can, but it is intimidating. It's nerve-wracking, you know. It's a fishbowl thing, so it's tough.
What's the percentage of people who come to Colonial Williamsburg and with a craft background? Because I know, like Bridgid, you enjoy, like you've been there.
I have, and I went into the cabinet shop and I didn't talk to anyone. I like walked in and then like walked out immediately. I was feeling too shy. But I'll go back though. I'm gonna go back though with knowing some of the people I know, and I'm gonna hopefully get in on it. But yes, I have been
too intimidating, or
yeah, I guess I just wasn't feeling very social.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a me thing. But I have been to the Jonathan Hay shop, right? That's what it's called.
Anthony
Hay. Okay, the Hay shop. Yeah, so I have been there, but that was like 3 or 4 years ago.
No, but yeah, we get a lot of people with at least craft background of some kind. You'll get some people that will come in and, you know, kind of introduce them to things. You say, do you have any questions? And a lot of times you have people say, oh no, I wouldn't even know what to ask. And then you just say something or some fact about something, and next thing you know, they're like, okay, I can relate to this. I've got questions. That's always cool. But for my first couple of years, I would, if I was doing something I wasn't super comfortable with doing, and I kind of have my back to people and I'm working away and I'm trying not to make eye contact. And every time in my head, it's like Garrett Hack and Al Breed went on vacation together and they're in the shop watching me work, and then I'll turn over and it's like, oh no, those are a couple of sixth graders. They have no idea if I'm doing this right or wrong. But, it's easy to get nervous because most of us would work not in front of the public, or we share information on social media, but we can be very selective about that. So having people come in to see just any moment of your day is interesting. You got to watch what you say and watch how you act and all of that. But, it's hopefully we're not too intimidating to people. So you have to come back.
I will
try to calm down a little bit.
You're in public during your glue ups and somebody could walk in there. You're working a hot hide glue. So your glue ups are already a little bit elevated in stress level. But because I've had my wife walk in and notice the glue bottle in my hand and just be like, nope, I don't want any part of this and leave. But you are in public, you're in a fishbowl during your glue ups. Do you super mentally prepare for that?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes the preparation is, nobody's in here right now and I don't see anybody coming. I'm going to glue this up now, But generally when the way we work is somebody's talking, everybody else is working. And so it's not like I have to talk to you while I'm gluing up. And, most people don't necessarily know exactly what's going on. And so sometimes having somebody else translate the action can kind of help. People will see it through their eyes and we're always very forgiving when we interpret that. So even if something does go wrong, then we overplay our hands like, oh no, that's not a problem. This happens sometimes. And we can, which is true, right? We can reverse it and everything. And the person whose project it is not happy, but people get that. And we can always make things seem, we can upsell, if something goes wrong.
Yeah, and I have a question about the cabinetry and the furniture you're making in that shop. Is that going into the houses and like the living museum on the site, or what's the final resting place of these, pieces you guys are making? And what drives the production?
So a lot of what we make, we put up for sale after the fact. We don't take orders from the public. It's simply too hard to predict how our time's going to work, to hit a reasonable, deadline or something. We do make stuff for use around town, but in my 20 years in the shop, I've only done like 3 or 4 things specifically for town because the shop did so much work for about the 25 years before I started for the historic area. It was largely taken care of. So like now when we pick projects, when we bring on an apprentice, they have a curriculum. And so I'll choose projects, this is where you need to be in your training. And usually I can do that in a way where it's like, you need to make a chest of drawers, but you pick one from the collection that is interesting, to you. So we have, it's really a great situation where you can kind of choose our projects. Or for the rest of us, we have our woodworking conference we host every January around some theme. So a lot of our work will kind of funnel into that. We can choose projects because, hey, we haven't done one of these in a while, or I'm interested in exploring this or that. So we really are pretty lucky. And most often when we are asked to do things for town, at least in the last couple of years, we've done more, but they've been kind of cool things that it's like, oh yeah, okay, I want to do that anyway. Not that anybody cares about that, but it's, it's nice that that's the way it is. So,
yeah, for sure.
Very, very unrealistic situation, no deadlines usually, and we kind of make what we want.
But there's an actual curriculum that you guide apprentices through. I didn't realize that. It's like, it's not. Because, you've got John there right now, right?
Yeah, journeyman, yeah.
And I think I went down there with my family a few years ago, and you and I were chatting, and he was making some beautiful chairs. I think it was like one of the first times I met John, and I just thought he was just a badass from the get-go. But so he's working his way up to those chairs.
Right. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
pro-
And so somebody like John, who started like 8 years ago, 7, 8 years
Okay.
ago, no longer an apprentice at this point, but came in with a good bit of experience. I came in with some experience. Other people have, but not fully in the 18th century. We've had other people who started from the ground up, but usually with the 5 level curriculum, we can kind of cater it to people's needs. Some people will go through it faster, but typically we hope to get people through it in about 5 years. Each time you go up a level, there's a little bump in pay and so forth. So it's all, lined up with modern, company hierarchies and so forth. We're not starting with a 14-year-old kid and making them work for free, and stuff like that. But, and then, big parts of the curriculum aren't just sort of building things. It's also learning how to, because we have 3 jobs basically, right? We make stuff. That's the fun part. We talk to people about it, which can also be the fun part, but you have to have the right personality and mindset to know that that's kind of a fun part, but it takes skill, and that you develop. And then there's the research side of it. I'm making a corner chair right now that was originally owned by Patrick Henry. And so this is like a lot of our projects. I start with the antique. I have to know how to study that to get all the information out of it that tells me about not just how I would make it, but how do I think those original makers actually made this thing, which is probably a little bit, and it is a little bit different than how I would initially have thought this or that might have been done. But that takes time and just looking at a lot of stuff. So, most folks with experience aren't going to come in experienced in all of those areas.
So, that's so cool. You get do a lot of research aspect of it too. So do you have kind of like extra high clearance, security clearance for the museum, or do you get a like close up and examine a lot of those?
Is there a retina scan involved?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a key to anything, but our curators are incredibly accommodating. So if we need to study something, then we're going to be able to do that.
Yeah,
and often,
that's awesome.
Whether it's in the museum or one of the historic homes, or we also work closely with our conservators who are amazing, have this great modern lab, and often bring antiques in there. And because now not only are we looking at it, but we're also getting a curator's perspective on it and a conservator's perspective on it, which is great. When I started, we were able to bring antiques into the Hay shop, and we had a great track record. We didn't hurt anything, but for a while now, it's like, no, we're not gonna risk doing that. But yeah, we are. We're lucky. We get really good access to the stuff, and it's working at Colonial Williamsburg also opens the doors to a lot of other museums.
Yes, I'm sure. Yeah,
so you can just call up and say, "Hey, you might have heard of me."
Well, you might have heard of Colonial Williamsburg, but yeah, like in November, I was crawling around the floor of Monticello looking at a chair, and measuring it to make a copy of it, and that's not something that it's an experience most people get, to have. So,
and I have one more question before we get into listener questions. But Bill, when you started working at Colonial Williamsburg, like 25 years ago, right?
20, yeah.
20. Okay. How much of a selling point was it for you that you got to dress up like an 18th century person in woodwork?
Because that's Bridgid's
right
selling point.
Right.
That is
like she probably got out of her cosplay for the recording.
Yeah, I'm just wearing a normal fine woodworking t-shirt.
Right. I think for me, that was the thing, to be honest, that I was most nervous isn't the right word. I was most skeptical about. Like, it was not the thing that drew me into it.
Oh, I could imagine.
At all. I was like, I want to use these tools and work in this environment and work in this way. That seemed awesome, but I want to be able to listen to my music and wear my regular unfashionable clothes, not like the most unfashionable clothes. But and a lot of people have this experience. Like, some people absolutely come into the trades or Colonial Williamsburg because they're so invested in that world of costume interpretation and reenactment and so forth. But others, that a lot of folks that come in with more of a traditional woodworking kind of craft background, it might take a little while to get used to it. You might be grumpy your first couple of years and think, oh, why do we have to wear this? There's a legitimate thing where some people don't think you're really doing the work because you're dressed like it's the past, and that can be frustrating.
Wow.
But I think the costume means so much to so many people that visit that after a couple of years, I personally kind of got over that stuff, and it's not my favorite thing, but it's like, this is what I do. And I can see that it means a lot to people, and it makes it more immersive for them, even though I'm never talking to the public as though it's the 18th century.
Right.
If you have a question about a table saw, I will say, I'll talk about a table saw, but no, I think, to kids and a lot of people, it's just like they want to come in and they want a really cool picture of what life would have been like in the 18th century. And you'll learn how to wear those clothes comfortably and everything. So yeah, it wasn't a selling point for me, but I think it has become a meaningful part of the job for me, though.
Yeah. I can see how most people wouldn't gravitate towards that, but I'm a naturally theatrical person, so I think that's just the funnest thing ever. But yeah.
Okay, so before we get started with listener questions, which I definitely want to cover, Bridgid, don't you have a question?
Did I?
You're...
Oh, okay. I don't have a question.
Oh, okay. All right.
I just have a comment in that I think maybe in the next 48 hours, I'm going to try making some raised panels by hand, because as you can see, there's a door behind me that I got from a salvage place for very cheap, and I'm trying to refinish it. And the more I go into it, the more I just keep mucking it up. So I was like, okay, I think I'm going to knock out all the inner panels because they're just busted to heck and back. And yeah, I'm going to make some just simple raised panels. So I was going through one of your fine woodworking articles last night, Bill.
Okay.
How to make raised panels by hand. So that's my mindset right now. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. So that was just my comment.
If you get stuck on anything, but
I will.
I think doing the raised panel is seems like the hardest part of a thing like that. It's probably the easiest part. It's the most fun part, I think, too. So hopefully you have fun with it.
I think I will.
How are you going to do so I have done raised panels by hand, just a number at the time, knowing me, probably a number 6, go cross grain, then go long grain. But I was never able to get that nice straight edge. What would that lip be called, Bill? In the center panel.
Oh, well, I guess like a field. Like if you're making like the field that center section, and so there's that. So I would first, because I usually don't use a specialized panel raising plane. Those exist, but I kind of first make a rabbet all the way around. That's maybe 1/8 of an inch deep or something to define that field, that little step up in the center, and then just take that same rabbet plane and hold it on an angle and go. I do the cross grain ones first, and then go with the grain.
That was beyond me. I didn't have a Bill Pavlak article at the time, and I got too deep, and then decided to just roll with it as it was, and I think I just sanded everything. There's that time in woodworking where it's like, oh, I'll just sand it and just get rid of all of the contours and straight lines. And it was just, and it still kind of bothers me when I see a picture of that piece, but that's where I was.
Yes.
All right. So let's, this first question, and Vic has started, everybody sends in where they're from. And I never thought about actually saying this. And last episode, Vic was actually saying this is from Rob in Toronto, Ontario. And I thought it was cool. And I'm going to keep doing that now. So thanks, Vic. I've got a question. I'm working on a cabinet and I want to put an arch in the top frame and panel door. Seems like a pretty common thing to do, but I'm working mainly with hand tools and can't figure out how to cut the groove in the curved rail. I was thinking I could plow a 1-inch deep groove in the top rail and then cut the 3/4 inch deep groove, leaving 1/4 of an inch at the shallowest point. But my plow plane doesn't go that deep, and it seems like it would be pretty weak where the groove is 1 inch deep. I have a bandsaw, so I could resaw the rail, cut a groove on the front and potentially in the middle and the back. Kind of a pain. Is there a traditional way of doing this, or is this not really a traditional shape or design? Is there any way to do this that you can think of? And Bill Pavlak, you're the man for this.
He literally did it at Fine Woodworking New England.
Oh, did
That's
you?
Right.
Yep. And
for 3
it's
seconds, yeah.
simple as can be. Yep.
Yeah,
Oh, well, sorry, Rob, you missed it.
yeah. So next question,
Oh,
Um,
no.
I remember asking this question when I started at Colonial Williamsburg, and Mac Headley, this longtime master of the shop, great cabinet maker, he said, he's like, oh, you just chisel it. But the way he said it like you have to chisel it, and it sounded like, oh, you have to chisel it. That's really really hard, and actually, no, you just chisel it. It's fairly straightforward.
That's not what I thought
Um,
you were going to say at all. You
okay,
chisel
yeah,
it?
yeah, just chisel it. You don't need, I mean, theoretically, I suppose you could get some sort of funky little plane with a curved bottom or something like this. But really, especially like the picture that the listener sent is a very shallow arc. But even if it's more dramatic than that, if you think about it, you are, if you chisel from either end and work towards the center, you're kind of going with the grain. So you're just chiseling downhill, right? And unless the grain is really weird in that board, you're going to be going along the grain. So what I would do is I'd cut my arc out in that rail, use a mortise and gauge to really crisply define the boundaries of that groove. And several passes with that gauge, so it's a pretty deep thing. And then a couple of shallow passes with the chisel that's either the same size as that space or a hair smaller than it, right? If it's a 1/4 inch wide groove, then I'd probably use a 1/4 inch chisel, but maybe I'd use a 3/16 inch chisel, but just start really kind of tentatively, start at one end, work your way towards the center, towards the sort of the bottom of the curve, and then take a few passes from the other side, and then just keep doing that. And it goes really, really quickly. You're using the chisel bevel down. And since arches usually are on the top of the door, if you end up making it a little too deep, that's not really an issue. So you don't have to go crazy with this. You just want to have a clean surface on that edge, I guess. So which is why the mortising gauge really helps. But just a bevel down chisel working from both directions towards the center. And actually, it's kind of a pleasurable thing to do, and it should just take a few minutes. Like you'll want to go deeper because you're having a good time, because you're going with the grain in such a way that it's peeling off really nicely.
So if the arch has flat lands on the side,
Mm-hmm.
would you take your plow plane and do that, then cut the curve, like with a frame saw or something, and then fair the curve, and then take your mortise and gauge?
I have done that.
Okay.
Yeah. But even there, like the classic tombstone door shape has those little flats on the sides. Even there, it's still not so bad to chisel it if you want to, but you could. And using a plow plane to create a bunch of groove that you're going to end up cutting away is not a big deal. Plowing a groove is a pretty quick operation. So either of those ways would work.
Okay. I thought you were going to say, because there's like this, to me, the secret hand tool hack that is just like, oh, just make a scratch stock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say make like a really long scratch stock for it.
Yeah, which you could do, but I think if you chisel it, you find it's easy, and it's faster. When as you start to get a little bit deeper with a scratch stock, it kind of gets annoying. It starts to chatter a lot and so forth. Now, nobody's going to see inside that groove, but I really think chiseling is a good way to go. Where those arches get trickier, I think, is if it has a molded edge on it.
Okay.
Because if there's like a little thumbnail profile on that inside edge of the arch, then I would cut my groove, then I would go in and I'd probably use a scratch stock to create sort of like a little rabbit, and then use a back bent gouge to eventually carve the rounded over. You could file it or whatever, or use a scratch stock for that too. But I think if you don't have a molded profile there, just doing the groove, chisel. That's it.
Simple as.
Yeah.
Just don't overthink it. Just do it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think it's one of the easiest things to overthink, because it seems like, oh no, a router is perfect for this. But I'm trying to do it by hand. And what's the equivalent? Well, the plow plane can't do that. So do I need to make or buy some funky extra tool? And it's like, no, literally the most basic tool that you have will do this job.
So I think what has had me stuck in scratch stock world or whatever is when I was at the cooperage at Williamsburg.
Yeah.
What are those weird tools?
Like a crow's, maybe? That cuts a groove on the inside lip of a barrel for the head to go in. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a router plane meets a scratch stock kind of thing or something.
Slash a saw. It's got interesting little blade geometry there. Yeah.
Okay.
You're inside of a cylinder and having to cut a groove. So it'll be very hard to chisel like that. And you're also going across the grain. Whereas here you're going with the grain, and you have all the space in the world to work down into that. Now, if you have some funky Gothic arch with lots of different, reverses and so forth, it is a little more challenging, but it's still a groove. Nobody ever see the bottom of it. It just has to be deep enough. And so, yeah, you can chisel it off pretty well.
I kind of want to just see if I can do it. Like,
I want to try it now too.
Just give me, just chill for 20 minutes while I.
Yeah.
You really do make it sound approachable and easy. So,
job. But yeah, just bevel down, a couple of shallow passes, and then you can start to get pretty aggressive. Once you get clear to that surface, because it is easy to veer off course a little bit. But, once you get going, you're just working in a groove that you've already created, so it becomes pretty automatic.
Okay, I'm doing it.
Right on.
I'm gonna do it later.
Yeah, sweet.
Okay, so this question is from Steve in Maine, and this question has been brought up a few times by a few people. Not to minimize the awesomeness of your question, Steve, but there's like a theme going on right now in the world. But Steve asks, I've been lucky enough to have two main interests throughout my life: audio production as a profession and woodworking as a hobby. I seem to notice that people who are interested in woodworking are also very interested in sound and music, and the other way around. In your experience, do you find that to be the case, and how do you think one informs the other? Obviously, I find this to be the case. I was a recording engineer. Bill, little do people know that you have a deep background in music theory and you're a bass player.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you think about this concept?
I get this question sometimes, and my knee jerk is just a stupid joke, which is in music and in woodworking, you are committed to not making a lot of money, but spending a lot of money on equipment. So there's the perfect overlap right there. But more seriously, I think there's a lot of things. Maybe just three things that come to mind immediately. One, in music, we're in this world of art and creativity and so forth, but it's also intangible. And so maybe woodworking gives us a chance to use those same sorts of muscles to actually have a physical thing. There's something satisfying about that. That's why I like my records. I like to have, I know it's not the music, but I like that experience of opening a record and so forth. But maybe woodworking allows us to scratch this itch in a way that's very tangible. And there's something stupid in our human brains. It's just like, I need a thing, rather than just this abstract entity. I think for people who are, whatever direction you're approaching music from, you learn how to think really, really critically and engage really deeply with things, and you learn good techniques for that, right? And so that's such a big part of woodworking. And then I think for people who are musicians, and this helped me a lot, you really kind of the same thing. You learn how to think critically about what your body is doing when you're trying to make a good sound on the instrument. You learn how to become your own teacher, right? Hopefully if you had a good teacher, they taught you how to step outside yourself. And it's like, you keep playing that D sharp. because of it's not what your hand's doing, it's because of how you're standing, right? You can't cut that dovetail straight, and maybe it's not because of what you're doing really with the saw, but it's something about your posture that's throwing the saw off, right? And so we learn how to step outside of ourselves and troubleshoot and diagnose what's going on, and we learn how to practice well, and so I think, I mean, I don't know if that's probably not why there's this overlap, but I think it's why if you're successful in one area, you have a good chance of being successful in the other, maybe. I don't know. Those are my first sort of thoughts.
That was very eloquent. I think you brought up a lot of good points, and like you said, I mean, this applies to any craft like painting or sewing or whatever, but, with music and woodworking, there's a very strong technical base that you need. Like there's certain things you have to do a certain way, but on the, in the same sentence, like there's such a broad space for being freeform and artistic. And it's kind of like you have to have both to really be successful. You have to have that like freeform, creative, artistic part of you, but you also have to be able to get it done the right way and practice, because like, musicians have to practice like a lot, and it's grueling. And that's why I was a terrible viola player, because I never practiced. And so like I play music too, but not super well. I've mostly just like an instrument collector, because I like trying out all different types of instruments. But I don't think there's like necessarily something that draws musicians and woodworkers to the same field. I feel like it just comes back to creative people wanting to be creative, and just that's the way it is. And
finding the common ground and how to be creative. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I also think that for Steve, I feel like Steve might notice musicians and audio people and woodworkers, because that's your group.
Yes.
And I know when we do courses or whatever, like there's an overwhelming number of computer programmers or mechanical engineers, but again, I mean, and I don't care what you say, computer programming is a creative art, it's a very, very creative and skillful thing. Engineering is the same. It's a little bit, they're all different, but I think that there is something that people are drawn to creative fields, and but woodworking is, like you said, Bill, a more tangible hold it in your hand thing. When I first got into woodworking, I know people would be like, "Oh, you're getting into woodworking?" It's like, "Oh, it's the same." I would explain it's the same brain synapses as audio production, where I can sit there and move a fader on an EQ for half an hour, and over and over and over, and I equate it as that is, a half of a decibel dip at 375 hertz in the whatever is exactly the same as 2 extra shavings to close up the gap on that 10-inch shoulder that most people aren't going to see. Most people aren't going to care it happened or know or even never think it happened. But when it all comes together just right, all of those little teeny tiny shavings makes for a more skillful project. And for me, I've always thought that is the aspect. Like, I love the piecing together the same way that I love when I'm mixing audio, just tweaking an EQ over the course of an hour 12 times, and then it's done, and you sit there and say, sounds great, and you move on with your life, but I would be willing to bet, I would be curious if there are audio people, say hey in the comments, or if there's like engineers or anything that we've mentioned. I'm just curious what the listenership is out there, because I'd be willing to bet it is mostly engineers.
I was gonna say too, there's so many engineers in woodworking. including me. I used to be a mechanical engineer. So I think that's an especially I think that's a leap that makes a lot of sense to me, because it's like, yeah, engineers want to make stuff with their hands that they can see, and they want to knock stuff together and use tools. I get why there's a lot of.
I just went on a whole rant about mechanical engineers and totally forgot that you were a trained mechanical engineer.
No, that's fine. I mean, I didn't think it was a rant about mechanical engineers. It's the truth. Yeah, there's a lot of mechanical engineers in woodworking, and I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody. So whenever we hire a new apprentice, they'll probably be different, but all 4 of us full-timers in the shop right now have music degrees.
Are you serious?
Cool. Yeah, now 2 of them are harpsichord makers, so that makes sense.
I'm wrong. But... Steve's right. There's 4 people. Wait. So there's John.
Mm-hmm.
What's his musical background?
Number of different instruments, but vocalist, and it was teaching high school or middle school choir and chorus, before he came.
All right. Melanie, who's a
harpsichord maker, but was a violinist and violist, went to Hart, and then eventually ended up at North Bennett Street for the violin making program. And then Ed Wright, longtime harpsichord maker, who's went to UNC Greensboro, I think. Was a guitarist. Came to the shop in 1983 to make guitars when we did that sort of work and part in the Hay shop. And I've done all sorts of other musical things, but so everybody in there right now.
50% of them are harpsichord makers. So I'm going to say that tips the scale a little bit.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Fair.
still rather funny.
That is, yeah, you guys should make a band.
I know, but I think we're all pretty rusty at this point. So, but I think, when you're talking Ben, I had a thought that in both areas, like, you get really familiar with sort of chasing after this sort of that high, that sort of deep satisfaction, right? Of when things do come together well, or when the band's really clicking nicely, or even just like, playing the double bass, even just how it just feels really good when you even just playing a scale with a bow and everything is just right where it needs to be. And it's corny, but I still distinctly remember the first time I took a shaving with a sharp hand plane that I had spent way too long sharpening. And it was just like that. I felt really, really good, and it's like, okay. And this reminds me of just those moments that you're kind of chasing as a musician sometimes.
Mm-hmm. It's microdosing satisfaction.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. It's a thing you start chasing. And I think if whether it's in woodworking or quilting or, whatever, I will say this, I tried sewing the other day, and that is the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. But that is one that it's not going to connect.
It's not going to happen.
Not going to connect.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. Things are floppy.
It's just the fabric does whatever it wants to do.
Yeah.
It's the worst. So I grew up in a sewing family. So that was like my first, adventure into the craft world. And so I know a lot about sewing, and I hate it so much because, like everyone says, it's floppy, and then humans are super lumpy. So it's like incredibly difficult to make a well-fitting garment. And Ben messaged me the other day. He was like, I just did some sewing, and you've done both sewing and woodworking a lot. Is sewing like objectively difficult and the worst? And I was like, yes, it is the worst. Also, sorry to any sewist listening in the chat.
I want to get good at it. But
I wish I liked it.
Got the patience for it.
Nah.
And poor Katie's like watching me and just cringing, and it's just, I'm just trying to fix a pair of pants.
Yeah.
I'm sick of asking someone to fix my pants for me. I want to be able to do this. And it's Mike Pekovich's wife is a crazy talented sewist and fiber artist. And it just, I wonder what I guess my wife's a fiber artist too. So it's not, I live in a different reality, but
yeah, everyone's got their own thing. But yeah, fiber arts is just not for me.
Yeah.
Wood is the way.
But there are those people that make clothes with veneer, right?
But yes, I've seen wooden veneer like shirts and
like beautiful gowns,
corsets
like
or
this.
whatever. Yeah. So
These people are onto something. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a quick break.
Okay.
When you're working on a project in the shop, you're putting in hours of effort, measuring, cutting, sanding. The last thing you want is for a project to come apart because the glue didn't hold. I've had it happen, and all I'm going to say is never use a bottle of questionable glue on a project. The regret isn't worth the risk. That's why so many pros keep a bottle of Gorilla Wood glue on the bench. Here's what sets it apart. Higher solids for a stronger bond, dries a natural color with less yellowing, and of course it cleans up with water. The bond of Gorilla Wood glue is actually stronger than the wood itself, and it's easy enough to use for any skill level. While you're at it, grab Gorilla Wood Filler too. Glue for strength, filler for the finish. The complete woodworking solution. Gorilla. Tough enough for the pros, easy enough for everyone. Order yours today at GorillaTough.com/ShopTalkLive. That's GorillaTough.com/ShopTalkLive. All right, all-time favorite tool of all time for this week. I'm going to start things off as Bridget's looking around her shop.
I'm lost.
Okay, so I have a thing for hammers and mallets. I don't know why. I tend to buy them a lot, and people tend to give them to me. And I am solid on hammers and mallets now, folks. But there's two that I really wanted to point out. And there's one, it is just, the nylon head S-wing mallet that it's two different color nylon hitting surfaces. One's red, one's yellow. I don't know what the difference between the two is. I don't know when you're supposed to go red, when you're supposed to go yellow. But I found, I've had the Crucible lump hammer. I've had, I have a dead blow mallet that is well beyond its time on this world. But in the end, I have found I keep reaching for this S-wing because it's just a nice heavy, I think it's over a pound or whatever. It's a nice heavy-ish mallet. It doesn't mark up the surface. And I just find I hit stuff with it a lot. It's super, super perfect for a mallet. But the other thing that I have to show off, our friend Mike Michelli gave me, I think it is an Osborne. You would probably know, but no, this is a Hammond. I think it's a cobbler's mallet or cobbler's hammer that he has polished within an inch of its life. And if you've ever hung out with Mike Michelli, everything has a handle that is made out of tiger maple. And he made this beautiful little mallet for it. We did an upholstery course and I was just awing over the mallet. And like a week later, I think Mike Michelli's one of those guys who probably just buys things. And don't you think, Bill?
Yeah, probably.
He probably just has a stash of these somewhere. And but this little mallet is it's just charming and the handle's perfectly molded. And I love a good mallet, and this thing has earned a solid space in my shop along with the S-wing and the 5 others that I use all the time.
That's a whimsical looking hammer.
Yeah.
It's very cute.
It's a really nice rounded head to it too. So, apparently somebody said that they make great, fretting hammers. So that is going to be the next time I use it.
And Mike is so nice that he probably just sees a thing and it's like, I know Ben Strano, and I think his life would be better if he had this hammer, so I'm going to buy it.
Mike he's a gift giver. Mike loves making a small dedicated gift basket and sending it to people. He's just that guy. Mike is the best. So, Bridget, what do you got?
I don't really have anything other than literally just my low angle jack plane. It's if it works, it works. And it saved me this week because I've been trying to restore this door, like I said, that I got from a salvage yard, and it was covered in paint. And I tried stripping the paint, citrus strip, all that. Nothing was working, and the paint was just so deep in the pores. And I was just like, why don't I just I have a unique set of skills. Why don't I just shave the paint off with a jack plane? 2 seconds, and now it's mostly bare wood. But yeah, my jack plane, that's all I got. I don't have anything funky this week. Nothing new has come into my shop except for a pneumatic pin nailer, which is not that interesting. But yeah.
Can I ask you about this door? Because this door seems to be haunting your life right now. I didn't realize that you chose it. Like, I feel like this door was bestowed upon you with your house, and you're trying to maintain the okay.
This door is.
You were like, oh, this is a basket case. Gimme.
Okay, it wasn't okay. And the thing is, this door it is haunting my life, but I've been having fun with it recently. So we're redoing our downstairs bathroom, and the existing door is just like a flat composite painted white door, landlord specialed within an inch of its life, just like goopy drips of paint all over the hinges, all over the door. And then like some really cheap brush nickel hardware. And I was like, I need to replace this. So I'd been on the hunt for a solid wood door for a long time, because the dimensions are actually super weird. Like, it's like kind of really thin, but also really tall. So I'd been looking.
Yeah.
So I'd been looking for a door for a long time. And when I found this one, I just snatched it up, and it was a beautiful door. It was like painted like kind of an off-white color. And if I went back in time, I would have just repainted it some trendy color or something, but I really wanted to have like an exposed wooden door on our first floor. So I've just been trying to get the paint off and then refinish it and restain it. But I'm getting to the point where I'm just thinking about replacing all the center panels and replacing the molding details and all this. And, it's like, these are choices I've made for myself, and that's okay. And I stand by my choices. It was $30, which is a pretty good deal. I don't know. But yeah, this door's haunting my life. So yeah, all-time least favorite door of all time for this week
is that door.
That's what I got for you guys.
Door to burn.
Yeah.
What you got, Bill?
I think I wrote a blog post about this, so maybe it's cheating, but it's been a long time ago. So just a really big chisel. I love a really big chisel. Not a typical bevel edge chisel, but something that's like 1.5 inches to 1.75 inches. So a really wide chisel that's longer, is comfortable to grip down along the blade. And I got one at the hay shop that the blacksmiths made, which is my absolute favorite tool of all time. That's always my answer, because it's
like period.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what I love about these things is, one, you kind of have to get an old one or have somebody make you one, because there aren't really many good tools like this made nowadays. I think you can do a lot with it, which is what I really love. It's the versatility. So it's great for sneaking up on precision fit on like a sliding dovetail or a tenon. But then it's also a go-to tool I'll use for just sculpting away a lot of material really quickly on like a cabriole leg or crust rails on Chippendale style chairs and so forth. I can use it with the precision of, like a block plane or something. And then I can also use it to sculpt really aggressively, almost like it's a draw knife. So I love that. I get those two totally different personalities in just a big chisel, but it has to be comfortable to hold and wield with both hands. So you get a lot of finesse in your hand down low by the blade, and a lot of power, almost like using the way you use a turning tool, right? A lot of power out in the back. Those have always been among my favorite things.
Nice.
Yeah. Big ass chisel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's jump back to questions. We'll see if we could get 2 more in. All right. Chris from Minnesota. I started cutting dovetails via the Frank Klaus method of pins first, which uses a chisel to chop out most of the almost most of the waste. I like this method for its speed and ease of marking the tails, and I've been practicing this method by making Kleenex box covers for gifts. The boxes are made of relatively thin 3/8 inch thick wood, and chopping out the waste has been easy. But I'm curious if it is advisable to chisel out the waste if I was making a cabinet using thicker boards. Would you still chop away or maybe grab a fret saw? Thanks for the great podcast. So Chris, or for Chris, Bill, you're a chopper.
I'm a chopper.
Bill the chopper.
I'm a chopper, but I will. I mean, I'll saw it out too. I always learned it via chopping, and if you're kind of smart and strategic about it, you can still do it fairly quickly. It also really does depend on the type of wood you're using. And there's no way to get around chopping when you're doing half blind dovetails, but I think it's strange. Sometimes I don't know which is faster. I've never timed it. Should do that sometime, but I don't know that I care. They both, can be efficient enough. This is super unique to me. If I've got big case dovetails to do in the hay shop, I'll usually saw out most of the waste, and then of course pair to the line, simply because it is like a little quieter and less obnoxious to whoever's trying to to talk. And I don't know that that's super historically accurate or not. It's very hard to sort of track that kind of thing in an old set of dovetails that are already together. But yeah, you absolutely can do it. And Frank Klaus removed the waste in other ways. That's his famous bow saw with the 90-degree turn in it, where he does everything in basically one move. So either way, you're going to have a lot of people on your side. Both techniques work really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Bridgid, are you a chopper, or are you a?
I definitely saw out the waste with a fret saw. That's just what I do. But I'm not married to that idea. So and Bill, you can confirm or deny this, but is the idea of using a fret saw, I mean, personally, I think it's just a little bit easier. I don't feel like I'm just like hammering into a brick wall,
Right.
But it's just a way of kind of preserving your chisel edges, because you have to sharpen a lot more often if you're a chopper. Or would you say it's kind of a negligible depreciation of the edge?
No, I guess you would have to sharpen more often if you're chopping, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if the material isn't super miserable, it shouldn't be that big of a deal once you're comfortable sharpening and so forth. And I know some people will. People used to talk about this. I haven't heard anybody talk about this in a long time, where it's like, I got my chopping chisels and I got my paring chisels, which kind of helps a little bit. You still have to sharpen up those chopping chisels every now and then, but yeah, I don't know. Just got to get rid of that wood. That's and I think where a lot of times people will get bogged down in chiseling is they're not taking this mindset of, I just need to get rid of this wood and I only need to be precious right at that baseline. Right. And so they're chopping very neatly and carefully. And it's like, no, you can be pretty aggressive. But you need to learn a smart strategy about how to do it.
I was going to say, you're very systematic too with your chopping, where you're doing like little V cuts and then taking out a big chunk of the tail to that depth, right? Can you talk about your chopping system a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, so like anybody, I'm thinking about chisel creep, right? So I'm a little ahead of my line, and I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna hold the chisel right down at right above the bevel, and sort of anchor it with my hand. I'm gonna chop down, do all down cuts everywhere, and then come forward just a little bit and chop into that cut. So I'm always creating these sort of right triangles, and I usually, the wood out at the outside edge of the piece, I don't like to chop that away. I like to leave that so that when I flip it over to come in from the other side, my waist is supported still. I find that, if that makes sense, it's less likely to lever and get a big bit of tear out, down in the middle beyond your baseline. But yeah, I just kind of go down and come forward and just do that a few times, in 3/4 inch thick material. I'm not the fastest dovetailer in the world, but still, I don't think it takes a crazy amount of time. You can go pretty quick. But and another factor is how much space is there between your pins.
Oh yeah.
If there's a ton of space, and I've done things like this, copying an antique where there's just a lot of space. I was like, I just don't want to chop that. Sawing is going to be faster. Like if I have to, use an inch chisel and then slide it over a little bit, gosh, I'll probably saw that out. Yeah, and then pare away.
Is there, yeah. I was just going to ask, is there any like wood species or thickness that you would say would slow down your chopping significantly where you're going to saw it out instead? Or would you say most like the domestic hardwoods aren't going to give you a huge issue?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
You can't think of anything. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Unless, but I'm not like doing this all the time. I don't know if you're doing some crazy, super deep dovetails and like building a workbench or something like this. And then maybe I'd probably drill out a lot of that waste or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Go on, Ben.
No, I always think about Megan Fitzpatrick, who makes more tool chests and, dovetail, like really tightly dovetail, like chock full of dovetails on all of her projects. And she chops everything out. And I mean, it's got to be fast for her because she's doing it day in and day out. I mean, she's not, she teaches and does all sorts of editing, but I don't think there's anyone who dovetails more than Megan in my head. Maybe Chris Bexfer. I don't know. But and Chris is a chopper too. So I think it's a system thing. But I will say, Bill, your little tidbit about not chopping out the end of the waist so that it is supported when you flip it over. When we shot your class, that was I was probably behind the camera doing a mind blown thing. Because that really was like a moment of find someone who's watched people dovetail more than me. You won't. And I've never seen that before, but there was like this solid reasoning for you doing that. And it's the type of thing that, like when we're thinking about people to do a course on hand tool joinery, where it's like, this is someone who has kind of been forced to do these things by hand over the course of 20 years. And in those 20 years, by golly, you're going to figure out the most efficient way for you to do it, without screwing up the project and without, causing undue bodily harm and all of that stuff. So that I remember seeing that and being like, yep, this is why Pavlak is here.
Well, what was kind of satisfying for me about that for this course was I sort of stumbled upon that over time. Nobody ever told me to do that. And while I was preparing to teach the course, I was, reading through a lot of things. What am I missing? Are there things I'm going to say that I can't defend, or this like, oh my gosh, why would I do it this way? This other person, I've been reading this stuff forever, but in one of the books of Charles Hayward stuff that Lost Art Press has, the one on joinery, either him or or Robert Waring, one of those two guys actually mentions that. And I was like, I already was planning on making that point, and I just felt a nice like pat on the back. It's like, yes, like validated. This isn't a stupid, sort of thing. So,
hey, but I thought I invented this.
Yeah.
Well, that too,
I invented dovetails.
Yes.
All right, we have one last question that I think each of us can only name one answer for this, because we're long on time right now. But this question is from Tim in Germany. What do you consider timeless furniture? Is there a style of furniture or specific piece that you think will never go out of style? Do you have tips for this? Let's just answer that. Let's not go to the tips and everything. So timeless furniture. I don't want to go first because I'm going to steal the obvious one.
Yeah, which is shaker furniture.
All right, so none of us can answer shaker.
Yeah.
I was thinking,
yeah.
Sorry.
No, you go on, because I really don't have anything. I feel like every design, design style has its own timeless pieces and its own whack pieces that maybe get forgotten or,
That's a really good point.
Lost to time, because I study a lot of vernacular furniture these days, and there's some beautiful pieces that are timeless and well balanced. And then you see some things that look like they came out of a nightmare. Like they just are absolutely strangely proportioned and stuff like that. So it's like, but most museums and historians forget about those things because they're just weird and whack. So I don't have any overarching answer for this outside of, I think Shaker furniture is pretty universally timeless and balanced and beautiful, but that's the easy answer.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I thought a lot about this, and I was thinking more in terms of a form of furniture rather than a style.
Yeah.
Period. And so what I was thinking of, among a lot of different things, but one would be like a trestle table. So you could make a trestle table that is perfectly medieval, or you could make one that's arts and crafts. Yeah, it's a throwback to those earlier things, but it's also of its moment. And you could do some pretty funky modern things with it. And it's still that form, but it's, I think, a form that can carry a lot of weight in terms of, different stylistic things. I think that's always the challenge. You want to make something of your moment, but also that's not going to look like it's all that it is of your moment, and your moment has passed, right?
Yes.
And so, yeah, I don't know. That was kind of how I was thinking about it.
I like that answer. No,
I like that answer a lot too. Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like, you see certain forms over and over again, where like I had a little moment because I was casually in Switzerland last week for my honeymoon, and we went to some museums, and there were these Swiss. It was almost like a backpack or like a carrying satchel thing, but it was made of wood, and it was this bent wood form that looked just like a shaker box. It was its Swiss version of like this type of bent wood shaker box. Also, in Japan, they have bent wood boxes called magawapa, which we've had Brendan Gaffney do some demos of that. And so it's so like, I'm kind of diverging from the original question, but it is so cool to see the same things, like the same forms just reinvented over and over again. Yeah. Classic forms.
But I always think of something like any sort of, a blanket chest that's just a dovetailed box with some feet. Like you can do like subtle little differences of it, and that'll be around forever. But that's kind of the same thing over and over again in some ways. Like I was thinking trestle table, among other things, because that's like, it's always going to be a trestle table, but it can also be of its time too.
Yes.
Well, I was actually, as you were talking about trestle table, I was thinking about blanket chests because, you've got, in all of the major styles, that form is really, represented. You've got your country furniture, if you will, that, painted Germanic or Dutch colonial, painted chests that really hold up aesthetically nicely because, again, it's this, but is it really just the simplicity of the form in all of these, where it's like trestle table, you've got really 2 trestles, a table, maybe some stretchers, between the trestles. Blanket chest, your 6-board chest, it's represented in, neoclassical furniture. It's, but the form is always the same. The decoration is of its time, probably. So I am going to skirt the answer with blanket chest.
Well, that about does it for this episode of Shop Talk Live. Shop Talk Live is hosted by me, Ben Strano, and Vic Teslin, and this episode was mixed by me. Mike Pekovich is Fine Woodworking's creative director. Bridgid Gruber is our associate digital editor. Head on over to shoptalklive.com for the show notes, and we're going to try and put any links that we mentioned in the episode in there. If we don't, leave a comment, and we will. If you can give us a thumbs up on YouTube and a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, we sincerely appreciate that. Make sure you head on over to finewoodworking.com/elearning to check out Bill's course. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. I hope you get some quality shop time.